Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we stitch together the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our curious viewers, Scotty_Parker30. Thanks for the suggestion, Scotty. You asked, who invented the sewing machine? And at first, that might sound like a straightforward question. One person, one great idea, boom, history made. But oh no, the story is full of drama, lawsuits, broken dreams, and more patent wars than a telenovela has plot twists. So grab your thimble, fire up your imagination, and let's unravel the surprisingly chaotic history of the sewing machine. Right here on Explaining Everything. Picture this. It's the early 1800s. Making clothes is slow, tedious, and powered by the muscle strength of your arms, fingers, and maybe your patience if you're lucky. A single shirt could take hours or even days to complete. Into this world steps several inventors, all racing to create a magical contraption that could stitch fabric faster than any human alive. It's like the 19th century version of developing the next iPhone. But instead of tech billionaires, you've got French tailors, American farmers, and one guy who stabbed himself in the leg testing his prototype. Our story starts in 1790 with an English cabinet maker named Thomas Saint. He patented what historians believe was the first sewing machine design. It could sew leather and canvas, which is impressive, except for one small detail. No one is entirely sure if he built it. His design just disappeared into history like your favorite sock in the dryer. Fast forward to 1830. Enter Barthélemy Thimonnier, a French tailor who did manage to build a working machine. His creation used a hooked needle and could make a chain stitch, and it worked. He even landed a contract to make uniforms for the French army. Things were going great until the local tailors found out. They feared his invention would steal their jobs, so they stormed his workshop and destroyed all his machines. That's right. An angry mob with scissors took down the first working sewing machine factory. Meanwhile, in America, in 1834, Walter Hunt invented a machine that used a two-thread lockstitch. A big deal because it's the stitch most modern machines still use. But Hunt didn't bother to patent it because he thought it might cause unemployment. This might be the first time in history an inventor said, "Nah, I'll pass," and accidentally let someone else get rich. Enter Elias Howe, an American inventor who, in 1846, patented his lockstitch sewing machine. Howe's version was faster and more reliable than anything before. But there was a problem. His machine looked like a medieval torture device and cost more than a horse. People weren't lining up to buy it, so Howe tried selling it in England. But while he was overseas, other inventors back home, let's just say, borrowed his design. By the time Howe returned to America, the sewing machine industry was booming without him. Here's where things get spicy. One of the borrowers was Isaac Singer, who created a more practical, user-friendly machine in 1851. Singer's model had a foot pedal, so you didn't have to crank it by hand, and it could sew continuously without stopping. But Howe was not having it. He sued Singer for patent infringement, and won. Singer had to pay Howe royalties for every single machine sold. Imagine getting a cut of your rival's sales for the rest of their life. That's like if Apple had to pay royalties to the inventor of the flip phone. The sewing machine patent lawsuits became so intense that they were nicknamed the Sewing Machine Wars. Eventually, in 1856, the big companies formed the first patent pool in U.S. history, basically a peace treaty where they all shared their patents and split the profits. So while Howe and Singer still didn't exactly send each other Christmas cards, they got very rich. Why the sewing machine mattered. By the late 1800s, sewing machines were everywhere. They transformed clothing from something painstakingly handmade to something mass-produced. They gave rise to ready-to-wear fashion, reduced clothing costs, and even played a role in women's employment and independence. Fun facts. Isaac Singer didn't just make sewing machines. He also had at least 24 children with different partners, making his personal life even more complicated than his patent battles. Early sewing machines were powered by hand cranks or treadles, so using one was basically part sewing, part cardio workout. Howe's original machine stitched 250 stitches per minute. A skilled hand sewer could maybe do 40. It was like going from dial-up internet to fiber optic overnight. So, who invented the sewing machine? Well, it depends on how you define it. Thomas Saint had the first patent. Thimonnier had the first working factory machine. Hunt invented the lockstitch. Howe patented it, and Singer made it practical and popular. In other words, the sewing machine was a group project. And, like most group projects, some people got the credit, some got forgotten, and some got sued. Today's sewing machines are high-tech marvels that can embroider, quilt, and probably make you a sandwich if you program them right. But the core idea, a needle, thread, and a mechanism to join them, hasn't changed much in 180 years. The next time you zip up your hoodie or see a perfectly straight seam on your jeans, remember, that simple stitch is the result of decades of innovation, stubborn inventors, legal battles, and one French tailor who barely survived an angry mob. So, who invented the sewing machine? Technically, a whole team of ambitious, competitive, and sometimes lawsuit-happy inventors. Without them, we might still be sitting by candlelight hand-sewing socks. And let's be real, most of us can't even sew on a button. And remember, whether it's sewing machines or smartphones, every invention has a story. And usually a little drama stitched in. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.